I just feel the need to share the story of when I was in an abusive marriage and when I finally escaped with me and my kids in 2008. And I feel like I should share this story in order to help someone. But growing up, just a little backstory. Growing up, I was just really nerdy and gawky looking. I looked like a string bean, really quiet. My parents worked a lot, so they were, rarely ever home. So I really didn't have anybody to pay any real attention to me or anything. And then I go to school and I get picked on. So that was fun. And so when I got older, I got my first real job at a jewelry store. And that's where I met my ex husband. And he told everybody that when he saw me, he knew he was going to marry me. Side note, this is why I tell women to decenter romance, because when you hear stories like this, it'll make you lose your shit. Oh, he said this, oh, he did that, oh, and you get wrapped up in this Cinderella idea and it makes you overlook some serious red flags because you're caught up in having a romantic story. So we start dating, and you might hear a lot of people when they're talking about narcissists, they will describe love bombing. What I need people to realize is that everybody is going to be different. My abusive ex husband did not love bomb me, which means he didn't shower me with gifts early on and do grand gestures of romance and love. He didn't do any of that. Another thing you'll often hear people say about narcissists is that they will try to rush to get into a relationship with you. That also didn't happen. He wanted to take things slow and get to know each other. I was the one, honestly, who wanted to rush the relationship because I was so male centered and relationship obsessed that I wanted to hurry up, get into a relationship, get married, and have kids. I think we had been together for a while. We met February of 2003, and I want to say about maybe August of 2003, he decided to move to Atlanta to help his sister who was struggling at the time. And I had told him I loved him first. And then he told me right before he left. Now, when he moved to Atlanta, that was the beginning of the trouble. He would wake me up really early in the morning. And then if I got upset with him because I had school, I had work, I wanted to get my rest, he would say, "What, you don't want to talk to me because you don't love me?" And hold on, side note, I know somebody's going to say, "Well, I would have done this and I would have done that, and he wouldn't have called me." Very kindly, I want you to shut the fuck up. We all talk about would have, should have, could have in situations that we don't know what the hell we are talking about. And it's easy for you to see the signs on the outside looking in now because I'm literally hand feeding you the red flags and you have no emotional attachment to this person. I was also young. I also didn't know any better. So back the fuck off of me. Now back to the story. So I would always feel bad, like, oh, well, he is in a whole nother state and we're going to be busy throughout the day. So I would let him wake me up and go out throughout the day being miserable. So there was that. He would call me, and if I didn't answer the phone right away, he would question where was I, who was I talking to. It was never anybody, but narcissists accuse you of things that they're doing. When we would talk after I got off work, he would ask me, what kind of customers did you have? Were they men? Were you flirting with them? And like I said at the time, we didn't have social media. I didn't have women in my life telling me red flags and signs. So that's why if you're sitting there judging me, You can go to hell. I was 20 when we met, he was 26. So, in my mind, because I had no guidance, because I had no one really looking out for me, because I really didn't have anyone to vent to that would understand what I was talking about, well, I sort of did. I had a best friend at the time who just kept saying, I don't know about this guy. And of course, because you're young and delusional and stupid, you're like, everything will be fine. So in my delusional ass mind, I thought, well, once we move in together, everything will get better. And finally, the relationship will be what I have always wanted it to be. And this is a lie that a lot of women seem to hold on to. You think that once you move in together, once you get engaged, once you get married, once you have a baby, once this thing happens, this major life event, this person will treat you better. But those same life events bring out the worst in a person. It does not make things better. So I move up there despite my mom especially warning me not to go, but I wanted to be hard-headed. My dad, he's the type of dad who will let you do whatever you want because you ain't gonna listen in the first place, and he was right. So I get up there, and things start off normal at the beginning. He would leave me with his cell phone while he went to work. And then slowly but surely, once real life hit and the bills started to come in, let me just get off on an exit here and share another story. He was living with his sister and then got his own apartment. And I really think the only reason that he allowed me to move in with him at the time is because he needed somebody to help him pay the bills. And that's a whole nother video. So once those bills started billing, his ass started really to show. And I wasn't allowed to go anywhere unless it was unless it was his friends' wives and girlfriend. If I got off work, I had to come straight home, and he would time the route. And if I got home even a minute past what he thought, I would get grilled and questioned as to where I was, what I was doing. He would question, who was I talking to at work? If I had a male coworker, I would get grilled and questioned about that. I couldn't wear certain things. I'll never forget. This memory is as crisp as day in my mind. I was wearing like this V-neck shirt. It wasn't really that low at all, and I remember I was getting ready to go to work, and he stuck his fingers down in that little V-neck and was like, all this, I don't like that. Oh. Thinking about that still makes me angry to this day. So I couldn't wear certain things. When in actuality, he was, like I said, narcissists accuse you of things that they are doing. So I got pregnant with our first child, and you know how some husbands and boyfriends will dote over their wives and girlfriends, and they'll want them to take it easy, and they'll carry things for them, and they'll want them to kind of kick their feet up, and they really treat their wives and girlfriends like feathers at that point. I didn't get that treatment. He could have given a shit if my doctor put me on bed rest. He would have still expected dinner and cleaning and everything to be done as per usual. And he made fun of my weight. He made fun of my shape. His fucking mom was awful to me. It was a horrible time. After we had our first son, let's get off on another exit. This is why I say have boundaries with family members and don't love your family so much that you put your own family in a bad position. His brother got a ticket in his name that wound up becoming a warrant. So instead of his brother saying, hey, my brother put this ticket in my name, no. His dumbass went to jail for his brother, I think for 3 months. So here I am alone with this new baby. I was afraid to tell my parents or anybody what happened. God, I was so afraid. I didn't want to tell. I didn't want the humiliation. I didn't want anybody to panic. Somehow, I still managed to get everything I needed, and he would call me from jail. This is the insane part, and ask who I was talking to, where I had been. I'm looking back on it now. It's like, dude, you were in jail. So he gets out of jail, His mama convinces him that he got locked up because we were living in sin. So we get married at the courthouse, and I had wanted an actual wedding. Now, he proposed to me before I had gotten pregnant with our son, and anytime I would want to have I wanted to plan a wedding. It's my big dream to have a wedding, and he told me that weddings are for white people. Y'all, how many black folks have weddings? How many people of different races have weddings? And when it all comes down to it, it's just because he couldn't afford it. So we get married at the courthouse. I was not happy. I had gained so much weight. I didn't feel good. And he didn't help. He cheated a lot. I wasn't aware of it at that time. And I forget what we were arguing about, but he had choked me. And I remember he broke down into tears. But hold on, it's not a redemption story. Calm down. He broke down into tears and said, I just don't get it. I've ruined my future because of things I've done. You get whatever jobs you want, people like you, and I have to work extra hard. And then he dried his tears and went back to fucking hating me again. So he says he wants to send me to his dad's house. And me being an idiot at the time, I'm begging him, please, I don't want to go away. So he agrees, we'll just take some time apart. So I go to Arkansas with my son, who I think he had just turned 1 at the time, and it's a fairly small town, so everybody knew. And I would just lie like, oh, he's just, helping his brothers become rappers because his brothers are rappers. And then I beg him to come get me because I didn't want to stay in that small town, y'all. That's why I left it. So he's just like dogging me out. He's like, I'll get my son, but I ain't getting you. And I don't know what wound up happening, but he got both of us. And he was so cold to me in that car ride to Atlanta. And it was hours and hours and hours. And he sat up in the front with his brother and wouldn't talk to me the whole time. I remember, I think I cried most of the trip. He was just so fucking cold to me, so nasty. Just for no fucking reason. So we get back, and he had moved into this really nice townhouse. And I remember thinking, he don't have money for this. And I remember coming back, and I was like, how did you get this? Now, if you were to ask him this story today, he'll tell you that I was ungrateful and I had an attitude. I was asking, that's what narcissists do. I was simply asking, how did you get this? Because you ain't got no money. So he didn't really go into detail. He just said, I got a hookup, blase, blase. We get pregnant with our second daughter. I know you knew how he was. Why would you still be with him? Y'all, I was young and stupid and didn't have any guidance. I was male-centered, okay? Looking at it now, I get it. Calm down. Just listen. So I remember when I told him I was pregnant with our daughter, he looked at me and said, it doesn't change anything. So we end up losing that townhouse, and we move in with his sister. Oh my gosh, that was awful. His mom was already living with his sister. So it's her daughter, her mom, him, and me, and our son. Even more miserable. And little old young and naive me trying to show him, look, my belly's growing, and he would look past me like he didn't even see me. He was fucking awful, y'all. That was the saddest pregnancy I had ever had. So I was desperate to move out because his mom would say stupid shit, his sister would say stupid shit. I went to church, and this woman had pity on me and let me move in with her. Now, this is where I learned that just because somebody goes to church doesn't mean shit. So when I move in with her, and I get it, you gotta have boundaries, but she was like I thought her head was going to spin sometimes with how mean she was. So I didn't touch anything. I stay out of the way. My son behaves. We don't bother anything. We leave that house in the same condition every day. So, from what she told me, her son found out that I was living with her and he wanted me to leave. I really just think it was her not wanting us there, which is fine. So, I went to this apartment complex not thinking I was going to qualify or get it. I didn't have credit, I didn't have renter's history. I go into this apartment complex, a really nice place, by the way. And the leasing agent there, she sees my application, no rental history, no credit, no money. And thank goodness. Now, we don't like people who are con artists, right? In this case, I was thankful for her. She looked at me and said, if you give me $100, I will pass your application through. Yes. So I didn't have to pay a security deposit, first month's rent. I got it with no rental history, no credit history. Y'all, I hit the jackpot. So I get into this apartment, my first place with me and my son, and I'm pregnant. I get a job with this auto magazine where people sell their cars and stuff. I befriend people at my job, and I befriended this woman who at the time was in her late 50s, and she had pity on me. It makes me choke up to this day. She had pity on me. She would pick me up and we'd go out every Saturday. It was our tradition. We would go out, go to the flea market, go to the mall, do our grocery shopping, do our laundry. She was my best friend. I'm so thankful for her. So at this time, my ex-husband is living with his brothers. And he notices I have an apartment. Now, hold on. I know from the outside looking in, and now that I'm older, we can see the signs now. Again, calm down. Let me tell the story. So he sees I have my own apartment. He starts coming around more. We all know where this is going. And I remember hanging out with the lady, and I was complaining. She would always let me vent, and I'm venting. And finally she says, you know what? He's an asshole. Now, I was super religious at the time and believing that God would put us back together. So I said, I don't want you calling my husband an asshole. And she said, oh, okay. Excuse me. She began to fall back so far that we wound up not talking anymore. I apologized, tried everything, nothing. Now we talk now. We're friends on Facebook, so don't tell me to reconnect. If you tell me that you didn't listen, you just stopped to talk. So my ex-husband, he's spending more and more time at my place, and I remember going through his phone when he was in the shower to see if he had been talking to other women, and he was. And I remember being so stupid that I would pray that God would put us back together. And that eventually did happen. So he talked me into giving up my apartment to move in with him and his brothers. Oh, I was so fucking stupid. It was where his brothers lived was kind of like a split level home or a duplex. His brothers lived at the top. They had their own bathroom and their own kitchen and their own living room, and you could go downstairs, and we had our own bathroom and our own kitchen and our own living room, and we had two bedrooms downstairs, and they had two bedrooms upstairs. From the upstairs, you could directly access the front yard, and from the bottom, you could directly access the backyard and the side yard. And the abuse really escalated at that point, too. He would leave all hours of the night, and I remember one time he broke his leg, and his brothers took him to the hospital. And when he got back, he left to go cheat. And the only way I was able to get out of the house was by going to church. I found this church. It was Liberty Church on Cobb Parkway in Georgia. Still there to this day. And I met up with people there, other women there. See, that's one thing about me. I am such an introvert, but I can switch it up and talk to some people. I can make me some friends. That has never been a problem of mine. Let me tell you, thank God for that. So I go to this church and I meet women who are just really guides that I needed at the time, who spoke truth into me. And I'm not talking about preaching, not talking about Bible scriptures, I'm just talking about wisdom and common sense. So I remember I was talking to this one lady, and I was telling her things that these women did not put up with my bullshit. They were not going to sit and have me venting all the time and yada, yada, yada. So I'm telling her what's going on, and she's like, and I'm like, God wants me to heal my marriage, and God wants this. And she looks at me and goes, do you really think that God would want you, a God that loves you, would want you to be getting treated this way? And I remember, that turned a light bulb off in my head. And not too long after that, I remember something had happened, and my then husband was sleeping in our son's room because he didn't want to sleep with me. And I went into the room where he had kept his stuff, and something told me to just search through his duffel bag, and I did. And I found protection, if you know what I mean. So I questioned him on it. I put it out on the bed so he could see it when he came in the house. I didn't question him at that moment. So I rush out of the house. I go for a walk, and I remember praying, God, I need a sign. Show me a red cardinal, clear as day, if you want me to leave. Again, stop. I know how stupid of a question that was. It was obvious as day. Even the Bible says you can get a divorce if there's adultery. Why did I need a sign for something so obvious? I get it. You know everything. Y'all, I was still young and male-centered and very fucking stupid. Calm down. That's what I needed at the moment to wake me up, okay? So as I'm walking back to the house, he rushes outside. And we had the car, and then there's a gate that he parked in front of. So I'm in between the car and the gate, and he's rushing out from the door of the house to yell at me because he noticed that I had found the protection that he had. Starts with a C. And so he's yelling at me, screaming at me, hollering at me, and I hear chirping. So I look on top of the car, and there is a cardinal, y'all. A cardinal! So I'm looking at the cardinal, I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at the cardinal, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at what I'm looking at, and literally the second that he looked back, the bird had flown away. To this day, my mind can't wrap my head around the fact that I've never had a more blatant sign for anything in my entire life. Never. You know how you have signs and you're not really sure? That was the clearest sign I had ever gotten in my life. Literally at that second, I was done with his ass. Done. There was nothing else to talk about. As a matter of fact, I remember he was laying on the couch, and I came out of my room with a notebook, and I said, hey, we need to figure out how we're going to do this because I want to get a divorce. And I remember he sat up and was looking at me like, what? Why do you want that? And I remember being like, fool, what do you mean? But people like that never think that they are wrong. I remember, I don't remember if it was the next day or a couple days after that, or if it was even the same day, or if that was what caused the argument. But he started off by saying I couldn't take the kids, and then he said I couldn't take the car, and that was my car, y'all. So I'm like, just let me get my car so I can leave. I wanted to leave then with the kids. And I'm like, just give me, he withheld my keys from me. And I said, just give me my car. I want to go home. Give me my car. I was going to go to my dad's house. And he turned around. I was holding our daughter, and our son was standing in the doorway of his room. And I literally remember him picking me up by my throat and lifting me up. It had to have been like a couple, inches or something. I felt my feet off the ground. I dropped our daughter. She's a cat. She's she got on her feet. Thank everything in the planet that she was old enough to where she could walk and stand on her feet. Because, oh my gosh. So when he lets me down, I looked over, and our son, I think he was 3 at the time, I just remember these big eyes, and his little baby face looking horrified. And I remember calling a family member to see if they would let me stay with them, and they hung up in my face and told me to call the police. At the time, I didn't understand it, but now I understand it, because you got to be very careful when you get involved in domestic situations, because if the abuser tries to locate their victim, they could find you and do something to you. And a lot of times it takes victims 7 times to leave, and now you've got chaos and you've got danger, and that person did not want to be involved in that situation. Some people are afraid to just flat out say, no, it is what it is. I called the police station, and the police officer came, and his brother came downstairs. Remember, I told you they were living upstairs. And he tries to convince the officer that I was lying and that I made all the bruises and the marks on my neck myself. And the officer's like, So his brother goes upstairs, and the officer's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to press charges? Because I can't stay here all day with you. I'm sorry. Again, I already know I was young and stupid, so please shut the fuck up with your judgment. I decided not to press charges because I was afraid of what his brothers would do, because we lived with them. So the officer, before he left, gave me the information that I needed to go to a shelter if I needed. Y'all, I was so afraid to contact that shelter, because fear of the unknown. You don't know what's on the other side. And we watch all these stupid ass movies that give us this idea that all the shelters are just these rat and roach infested gang, surrounded places. And some might be that. But I had just gotten to a point where I made up my mind that I would rather live in a box with my kids than stay with this man any longer than I have to. I made the call. A woman from my church offered to, because to get to the shelter, you have to drive to another town, to the police station in that town. From that police station, the police in that town will drive you to the shelter. So a woman from the church offered to take me and my kids, pick us up, and drive us to the police station in that town. Another couple in the church offered to, everything I could pack up, they would keep it at their house and mail it to me free of charge once I got where I was going to live. Once I left the shelter, another woman offered to take me and my kids to the bus stop so we can get to where we were finally going to live for the next 5 years. The day that we left, the police were there to escort us. The woman was there. I think it was 1 suitcase, a duffel bag, and my kids' 2 car seats. And we loaded up in her car as the police are supervising. At that time, my then husband was at work, and one of his brothers had seen what was going on, and he's outside like, what's happening? And the police is like, just throw everybody in the car and go. So he was like, don't worry about fastening them in. Just get up the block, and then you could fasten them in. They wanted us to get away safely. So we heave all the kids in the car, and we drive up the block. The police are behind us, and we get everybody fastened into the seatbelt, and off we go. She takes me to the police station. I thank her. I'm also friends with her on Facebook still. And then we went to the shelter, and I just remember it was such a freeing experience to finally be safe. And it was a really nice shelter where we all got our own room. Some women don't get nice shelters. I didn't give a fuck. I was just happy to be out of there. So again, my introverted ass befriends one of the women there. Now, I never got her contact information. What a shame. I would love to know how she is, how everything has gone for her. I'm going to shoot out a wish that she'll come across my videos and be like, it was me. So I don't remember her name either. I don't remember anything. I just remember what she looked like at the time. And this was 2008. So I get to the shelter. I reach out to another family member and I'm like begging them, please let me and my kids stay with you. And they did. So from the shelter paid for a bus ticket to fly to where that family member was. And another member from the church came, got me and my kids, and took us to the bus station, gave me a beautiful journal that I used for that whole period of my life that I was in that other state with that family member, and when I was rebuilding my life in that state. And I literally, that journal like perfectly ended my last day being in New Jersey. I was there for 5 years, and the last page was my last day in New Jersey. How crazy is that? So, yeah, that was me and my kids' escape. That was a part of the rebuild because we only lived with a family member for like 2 years. I don't even think it was 2 years. I honestly think it was just 1 year. I don't remember. But I did get my own apartment, went through different jobs, and was very much still a pick-me. I hadn't learned shit. The whole time in New Jersey, quite honestly, was me getting back the youth that I had lost with my ex-husband. Made a lot of mistakes, did a lot of stupid shit, partied, craziness. Anyway, that was my story. We did finally get away. Don't ignore red flags. Don't get caught up in romance. Tell your friends the truth, because it will set you free. If you're too busy trying to hide and make sure everybody thinks that everything's fine, that's a red flag. I've been through a lot of shit, y'all. Anyway, bye.